Does Nikki Sixx hate John Corabi? Let's talk about it. Welcome to Sight Sounds Flavors on YouTube, sightsoundsflavors.com. If at any point in time you like the video, smash that like button. Please subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, and leave a comment down below. It's really kind of cool in a really weird way how everything kind of played out. You know, Nikki liked the Scream. Nikki had some nice things to say about the Scream. John calls to thank Nikki. Nikki brings John into Motley Crue because after all, Nikki is Motley Crue. Always has been, always will be. He's the only member that has always been there. You know why? Because Nikki Sixx is Motley Crue. So, whether they fired Vince or he quit, and I lean more on they fired him because why would he quit? If he was able to race cars and jump out of airplanes and do whatever he wanted, why would he quit? They fired him because they were tired of him making them a second priority. I mean, it's pretty obvious. They bring John in and they make a phenomenal record. I mean, you know, the self-titled probably shouldn't have been called that. It should have been, you know, Hooligan's Holiday or something else, you know, but they did a self-titled, and they being Nikki. And it was a phenomenal record from beginning to end. The musicianship was through the roof. And anybody that's seen the studio outtakes, it's like 4 hours long or something like that, that were floating around YouTube. I wish I would have seen those in the 90s. I would have died, but we didn't have the internet in the 90s, not in the early 90s. You could see that it was a real band effort, and they were really feeling John. They liked what John was all about. They liked his bluesy, raspy voice. They liked the fact he could play guitar. They liked the fact he could play bass. They liked the fact that, you know, he was just a major musical contributor and a great singer as well. And, you know, then the album sold like crap. And the tour, they had to downsize, and eventually they canceled it. And then they brought Vince back. And I think that at that point, you know, John had already dropped a few rungs down the ladder. Because if Nikki really was punk rock, if he really was that rebel with a cause, if he really, really believed in it, he would have told Elektra, look, we're going to come out with Personality Number 9, which was supposed to be the follow-up to the self-titled. And we're going to release it. And if you don't want us to, then you can release us from our contract, but you can't put us in suspension because we will have a record ready and we will force you to release it. And if you don't release it, we'll take you to court and then we'll really force you to release it. That would have been the hardcore thing. And with a $35 million, $35 million contract that they had just signed, and they only had one record to that credit, I don't think Elektra would have dropped them. And if they would have dropped them, great. Because then they would have been able to release the record and maybe own it, completely own it outright, and you know, oversee distribution. And I mean, that would have given them a heck of a lot of power. But when the label basically said, "Look, we don't want to release a new record with John Corabi," they all folded. They all folded like a cheap suit. You know what I mean? And the thing is, after all that, you know, and kudos to John, you know, because this has been, you know, conceded by Vince, conceded obviously by John, conceded by people that were there. Maybe conceded is not the right word. Recognized by people, is that John hung in there and showed Vince what they were working on and essentially helped Vince out. And they've got a phenomenal relationship. You know, John and Vince have toured together. So, I mean, it's real. But the thing is, though, is that after that, I think that John had dropped a few rungs in the ladder, because the fact the record wasn't successful. But he wasn't totally off the ladder, because when Nikki puts Motley on hiatus so he can do Brides of Destruction, see that? He put Motley on hiatus so he could do Brides of Destruction. Did Motley release anything while he was on, no, because Nikki is Motley. Anyways, it didn't work out there. Something didn't work out there, and I don't think it was Nikki telling John, look, we don't want you around. I think it's more John telling Nikki and Tracy, hey, you know, I want to maybe do the Dead Daisies, or I want to do something with Union, or I want to do something with, you know, just an acoustic guitar and just, you know, open for a bunch of bands worldwide. The thing is, I don't think that John wanted to be involved with Brides for whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe he didn't like the direction. Maybe, I don't know, whatever. But I'm just saying that in my opinion, it wouldn't have been Nikki and Tracy telling him to hit the road. It would have been him saying, look, I don't really think this is for me, and, you know, pieced out, you know, in a classy kind of way. And that's what I think happened. So I think when the self-titled didn't do well, and then when John pieced out from Brides, I think now he was basically on that bottom rung. You know, I don't think there was much left. I don't think he was even on the second to last. I think he was like literally on the bottom rung. And then when John made the comment about the Heroin Diaries, where he said that he thought some of it was a little bit colored, a little bit embellished, and then I think he said somewhere else that he didn't know of too many heroin addicts that could actually write a diary in the closet. I mean, he was like, actually, he didn't say, he said he didn't know of too many heroin addicts that could stay awake, let alone go in a closet and write a diary. So I just think that Nikki wasn't prepared for that, but the overall review of the Heroin Diaries by Corabi was very positive, and I think he even tells people to go out and buy it, that it's a good read. But it was just a couple of things that he said, God forbid that he have an opinion that dissents with anything Nikki has to say, and I think that effectively got him off the ladder. So I think it was 94 not being platinum plus, not platinum, platinum plus. Remember, Decade had won double platinum, and Dr. Feelgood had sold like 3 or 4 million. They needed a double platinum. Platinum alone probably wouldn't have been enough. They needed 1.5 million, I say, to keep Elektra happy. You know what I mean? Platinum would have maybe bought them a little bit of cred to put out a second record, but all they got was gold, and gold was like just no. So I think that record, which actually debuted at number 7. Again, it was a great record. It just wasn't Dr. Feelgood follow-up with Vince Neil. So that record, the Brides thing, and then the, good review, but with those couple little jabs for the Heroin Diaries, I think that sealed John's fate. Now we move to the bullshit farewell that Motley Crue did, where they all signed those contracts, and Mick works with John, and they leak out a really good track. And then they leak out another really good track, and then you never hear it again. Then Mick says something along the lines of, I can't work with John. I think he told Eddie Chunk, I don't know, I can't work with John. It kind of violates the agreement. So I can't. All right. And then, Mick announces he's going to retire from active touring, not from the band, but from active touring. And then all of a sudden the people are like, well, you're no longer part of Motley. They're saying you're senile and you can't play your guitar. You're not part of that band anymore. And that band's moved on with John 5. That agreement you signed way back when, where Vince cried on stage and Tommy's drum thing didn't work the last tour, that's moot. That's moot, because you guys have toured after that. It's moot. So what about this great music with John Corabi? Now, out of nowhere, Mick says, yeah, those songs, they just weren't really up to my standard for this solo. Basically saying that those songs were trash, is what he was saying. He had never said that before. In my opinion, Mick Mars is still scared of Nikki Sixx. In my opinion, Mick Mars releasing those songs with John Corabi, given Nikki Sixx's perception of John Corabi, would be the ultimate deal breaker. It would burn a bridge that would never be rebuilt again. I think Mick took shots, Motley took shots. That would have been the nuke option. That would have guaranteed that Mick Mars would never have returned to Motley Crue, just like Ace has never been allowed to return to Kiss. He left them 3 times. Those guys are egomaniacs. You're not going to leave them 3 times. He did. He left them in 82. He left them in 2004. And that was it. I mean, they were just done. And I think he left them one more. That's actually just 2. But he left them one more time within that run. And they just had to deal with it. They had to deal with it. But they weren't going to allow it to happen a 3rd time. They weren't going to allow it. Maybe that's what I was trying to say. They're not going to allow him to come back after leaving for the 2nd time to then leave them a 3rd time. You know what I mean? So they were just like, enough is enough. They put Tommy into Ace's makeup, and they got a couple of imposters, and they've been playing with them all along, and that's that. You know what I mean? No disrespect to Eric Singer, who was a member of Kiss at one point, and Tommy Thayer, who was in the wildly successful band Black and Blue, but they're basically like scabs almost. I don't know. They're replacements. It isn't cool to wear another Kiss member's makeup and do their moves and horribly try to play their parts. But the point is, if Mick Mars, in my opinion, would have let those songs part of his solo record, or would have been, I don't know, seen in person on a stage with John Corabi, that would seal his fate as ever writing with, touring with, appearing with Motley Crue for the definite future. So that, to me, further solidifies that Nikki hates John Corabi. So I'm curious what you have to say. I wonder if John will chime in. or Eddie Trunk. Probably Eddie's publicist. Eddie's too big to watch YouTube videos, I think. Maybe the three sides of the coin guys, because they've got nothing to do. So I think that honestly, it would be cool to see what Dr. Fuck has to say. It would be interesting to see what Stevie Rochelle has to say. It would be interesting to see what you have to say. Thank you. Thank you for watching if you've made it this far. Nikki Sixx, you know, the logo to this is a Thunderbird bass. I worship Nikki Sixx. I love Nikki Sixx. I play bass because of Nikki Sixx. Nikki Sixx is my favorite bass player. Motley Crue and Kiss are my two favorite bands. Don't ask me to pick which one I like more. Nikki blocked me like 3 or 4 years ago on Twitter just because I said I love the 94 record. You should be more proud of the 94 record. He blocked me. So look, the reality of the matter is, you know, Motley owes a hell of a lot of respect to John Corabi. He was in a very, very undesirable spot, and he did the best he could. He made the best of it. He never had a nasty word to say about Vince. And, you know, they did him dirty. They did him dirty. And I found out he didn't even get, like, he doesn't even get a check from the Motley Crue Netflix movie, which is very good, by the way. And what they put him is for that stupid MTV interview where he didn't actually say anything bad about Vince. It was Nikki and Tommy and Mick, and that's it. They don't show him like Hooligan's Holiday or Hammered or nothing, misunderstood, nothing. He's just like this guy that fills in, appears at an interview, but still he's in it, right? Apparently he doesn't get a check. And he's not going to ask for one either, you know what I mean? He's not going to. That's the thing. Like, honestly, I think that John's interactions with the Motley camp are very limited. You know what I mean? But again, like John says, Nikki Sixx pays very close attention to everything that John says and does, which is also very weird. Very weird.